This one goes out to all the ladies out there. Now, guys, feel free to listen as well. But if you are a woman out there who has specific health goals, strength goals, maybe body composition goals, we have a special episode for you. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Movement is Medicine show. I'm here with Dr. Annie and Chryssie. Ladies, how's it going?
Hi, good.
Super excited to this. This is a topic that I think needs to be addressed. There's major gaps in information and education out there for many women who are pursuing specific health goals relative to their body composition. And when we say that, we're talking about body weight, how they look, how they feel. And oftentimes, when women are going after their specific goals, they're going after it from a weight loss standpoint. And today, we're going to explore with you two a different approach and a different mental approach, but a different training approach and a whole different nutrition approach to really how you can go about getting your goals in a more healthy, sustainable way.
Love it.
Let's start with what you see as some of the, your experiences and just what you see as some of the big mistakes that women are making when they're going after weight loss as their primary goal.
I think for me, the one thing that I'm seeing is that women are thinking that in order to lose weight, they need to exercise more and they need to eat less.
Right.
For one, they don't have a lot of time, especially if you're a mom. So they're automatically defeated. They're like, well, if I'm going to lose weight, I need to exercise more and I need to eat less. Well, I don't have enough time to exercise more, so I guess I'm just going to eat less. And then they get into this rut of not seeing progress in their bodies. Yes, they'll lose weight initially, but then they're stuck because they do need to start exercising. They need to exercise more, but they don't need to exercise 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Or grind it out for 3 hours on the treadmill or something old school style.
Yes.
Right. Especially all the super high intensity weight training, or not weight training so much as high intensity lifting and, biking and running and all that. And then also just nibbling on your kids' leftovers.
Yes,
to
exactly.
get through your day, right? Because
Yes.
you don't have any time, and then there's leftover mac and cheese, so you eat that, and you forget to eat anything. You don't feed yourself.
Right.
And I think it's important for people just to understand and to recognize kind of the concept of energy, energy in, energy out, metabolism, muscle, how muscle and fat interact and how they play a role in what your specific metabolism looks like and movement and all that stuff. So Chryssie, I'm sure you've kind of, you answer some of those questions a lot from your clients. How do you help people understand in a simple, applicable way that energy balance, muscle metabolism, all that kind of stuff?
Yes. The number one thing that we struggle with the most when I sit down with a client, for a lady, for example, is she's exercising, but she's no longer losing weight. So I'm going to ask her, or she's no longer gaining muscle. There's just not change happening in her body. So what I'll ask for is a 3-day food journal. I want to see what she's eating. Yes, I know that she's training, but I'm not sure what she's eating or not eating. And more often than not, she's not eating anything. She's snacking all day. She's drinking lots of coffee, but there's not a lot of protein being consumed. And that's what we need if we're going to build muscle, if we're going to maintain our muscle. So that's the first thing that we'll focus on, is increasing her protein consumption. And we'll just start with the traditional math equation of multiplying her total body weight by 0.8 grams. And that's going to give us the total amount of grams she needs to eat in a day. And we'll focus on that, because that's something that we often forget, is that in order to build muscle or maintain muscle, we have to fuel ourselves. And we get that from eating, not by exercising.
Yeah, I can speak to this personally, because when I started training with Chryssie, and I wasn't in it for a weight loss.
No.
I said, Chryssie, I want to learn how to perform some of the Olympic lifts because I'm not good at them, and I want to build muscle. I said, I want to be in the best shape that I could be by the time I'm 60. She's like, all right.
Challenge accepted.
And, and I'm a good eater. I eat really clean. I fill my belly, so I did not think that would be an issue. But yeah, we did a 3-day food journal, and Chryssie was not pleased with my consumption.
Yes.
And it's interesting because as much as I know book knowledge, about how it all works, we need protein to build muscle. I understand that we need protein for recovery. I still wasn't applying it to my own self personally. And it's really difficult to eat more. That may sound funny to some people, but it is.
Yeah.
Well,
and I think too, you thought you were eating enough protein because you felt like you were. But I think from not eating enough protein or under eating for so long, your metabolism had slowed down. Your body had adapted to undereating, and that's what felt normal for you. But now we're kind of in the phase where we're slowly increasing that protein consumption, and it's hard. It's not happening overnight, but week by week, we're adding a little more to get you to where we need to be.
Yeah. And I think what I notice about it is that I actually have more energy during my day, more sustained
100%.
energy. And that was one of the things I'm like, why am I flagging on energy halfway through my busy day? Because I shouldn't be, right? I do the right things for my body.
Yeah.
So that's been an interesting change. But yeah, it's, I think the way you said it to me was really nice. It was like, start with like 30 grams at every meal, 3 meals a day, 30 grams of protein. So you're getting at least 90.
Yeah.
And I know that you want more, but that's for a lot of women, that's a really, really solid start.
Yes.
And it seems like, okay, 30 grams each meal, I can achieve that, right? So I think that's a good foundational starting place for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the challenges is we've been kind of educated around calories quite a bit,
Right.
and there's been just so much noise around calories. And so when we think about caloric amount of food that we're eating, we don't oftentimes then think about how those calories are constructed. What are they made of? Those are the macronutrients. So the proteins, the carbs, the fats, and the alcohol that you consume. And I love to
What?
throw
Yeah.
alcohol in.
What?
I love to throw alcohol in if we're just for most people, because it really is the fourth macro. Your body processes alcohol differently than it processes the other types of calories. So but when you're thinking about the primary three, the protein, which I always think about as a building block, right? There's kind of a core building block. And then you think about fat and carbs as energy sources that do different things and operate energetically differently in the body. You start to get a better sense of what you're eating and what it's composed of, and then how that food composition translates over to how you're feeling, how you look, energy, ability, muscle, fat, all that kind of stuff. Because as you've called out, Chryssie, what I had observed when I was deep in macro coaching almost universally was people undereat, with women in particular, undereating protein, very, very low protein, and then higher levels of fat or carbs or both than they had anticipated, especially if they were on, say, a paleo diet or something where they thought they were eating clean and healthy, but there was a predisposition around energy molecules, energy calories, and not enough around kind of building calories, which would be protein.
Yeah. Well, especially when you get into your busy hustle and bustle of the day, those foods that are readily accessible, easy to grab, those are high in carbs, they're high in fats, not high in protein.
It really is to be challenging. It's to like challenge yourself to be intentional with your protein and say, hey, I'm going to get to at least 30. I think that is a really great, simple start for people. And the reality is you probably need to be close to like 120.
Oh,
or
yeah.
140 as for like,
I want her closer to like 145, 150.
yeah, that's what I would be thinking too. Like looking at,
I'm overwhelmed, everybody.
yeah. No, if I'm with Chris, if I was looking at you, if I was just going to be like, what shooting from the hip without running any numbers,
Yeah.
I'd be probably 120, probably base. And
Yeah.
then, like 140 is probably what my target would be.
Yeah, when I said that to Dr. Annie, her eyes close to just popped out of her head. She couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, this is maybe we can talk about this a tiny bit because I don't dislike meat, but I don't love it.
Right.
I don't crave a big steak like some people do, So it's like, and I know it's a wonderful protein source. And so that's part of my struggle is I don't really like meat that much. And vegetarian proteins are often laced with a lot of more carbohydrates than I really want.
Yeah.
So let's talk, like I consider them the cheap proteins. So your collagen powder that you can throw in your coffee, your Fairlife chocolate milk. It's like, what do we think about these sort of easy, cheap proteins for a little bit during the day? It doesn't replace full food, but
I think that they're helpful. I think that there are clean proteins out there, and then there's not so clean proteins, but the ones that you highlighted, I think that we should utilize them. They're there when we need to supplement them because first and foremost, we should try to get our protein from protein sources, meat sources. But when we're not able to do that, let's make sure we're having a post-workout protein shake because that's going to give you 20 to 30 grams of protein easy.
yeah.
Let's add collagen into our coffee in the morning because why not? It's free protein and you don't taste it. So I think there is a time and a place for them. But I do also think that there's a way that you can abuse them. Like if you think that you're going to live off of protein bars, maybe you're going to hit your target, your protein target, unlikely. And you're not going to feel good. You're not going to feel full. You're not going to feel satiated. You're not going to have energy. So I think that we should use those as supplements, but not as replacements.
Darn, there goes my lunch plan. Gosh.
Nice try.
But I do think it's really important.
No, I think it's a great point you're
have
bringing
that.
up, and I think that there's a lot of different ways to approach this conversation, and that's why I think oftentimes it can get confusing for people, because depending on who you ask, you could get all kinds of radical different answers that are, this is good for you, this is not good for you. There's the whole question of like of high quality foods and whole foods, minimally processed foods, and how it's really not about quantity, it's about cellular health. And ultimately, if you can address the body at the cellular nature, that's going to help resolve things downstream from the cell, and that you're going to get your goals. And that oftentimes leads into an intuitive based eating model where you're saying, hey, it's not really about weighing and measuring. It's not about portion control. It's more about quality control. And you want to maximize the quality and the wholeness of the food. And that's going to naturally lead you to the state you want to get in. I think there's some really good things there. I found that for me personally, I don't do well with intuitive eating. I really do need some structure. I need a little bit more weighing and measuring. I need a little bit more tracking. And I need some ways to get to that spot where I want to go physically. And I know that if I weigh and track and have a little more structure, where I'm actively measuring the amount of protein I'm consuming and carbs and fats I'm consuming in a day, that will work better for me long term. And when you get into that space of kind of weighing and measuring and tracking and coming up with specific goals, then looking at things like Fairlife, which I love, or whey proteins, which I think are great to supplement with. I think in collagen, again, great. Powders, processed stuff, I think they have a place when you're taking that approach. If you're in the other camp where you're saying, hey, ultra high quality, and they're saying those things aren't great, they're kind of fake, I get where they're coming from, and I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying it kind of depends on you as a person and what your goal is, how much time you have to meal prep, food prep, do all that kind of stuff. But I love some of those things. Where I think they can go wrong, Chryssie, as you said, is when people are like living off of protein powders or like disgusting like Huel, like you've been suckered into like this meal replacement that's like this disgusting, weird, super artificial thing that you're having like three
Breakfast, breakfast,
times a
lunch,
day.
and dinner.
You are gonna,
My kid loves Huel.
Yeah,
it's been marketed to young.
Yes.
No, their marketing is incredible.
brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
No,
Yeah.
they have a deep pocket, and
Yeah.
their marketing is outstanding.
Yeah, 100%.
There's no
Yes, I
doubt
have a
about that.
case of Huel banana in my garage. It is not tasty. My boy loves it.
Listen. I'm obsessed. Do you guys know that? So this is my favorite like meal hack cheat like thing like this. That's not like a cheat, but it's like a meal hack in this like category of food is a Ninja Creamy. So okay, Ninja Creamy. There was life before Creamy, and there's life after Creamy. It's like
I'm just
it's
trying not to laugh here.
BC, AC. Okay, it's like in my time as a human being before Creamy, after Creamy, and now Creamy. Because a Creamy, you make this Creamy. It's basically frozen ice cream, soft serve kind of ice cream deal. If you imagine, you make it at your home. You make it with a little bit of Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, Fairlife milk, scoop of protein powder. So
good.
So insane. You freeze it you put it in the morning, freeze it that night. You can have it. And then you blend it up. It's basically like this delicious, super proteiny ice cream. And then you can put some toppings on there as it fits into your particular macro plan. Mine oftentimes will be some chocolate chips, a little whipped cream. I'm going to put like half a Pop-Tart on there. I mean, I go, there's deluxe creamies. Might get an Oreo
has
cookie.
In this conversation, Barry? It is
All right.
going
This
down.
has turned really
Okay.
unhealthy.
No,
At the end of
this
the podcast, there's going to be a Ninja Creamy recipe.
80-20 people, or 90-10.
Yes.
So if you...
Yes. That's a great point, Barry. I'm glad that you kind of brought Dr. Annie and I down from our high horses because it is
good.
so important to be 80-20, 90-10, because that's what makes it sustainable. We are not proponents of a diet plan. We are proponents of eating in a way that's going to result in the life that you want to live, but isn't super restricting. You know what I mean? We've got to eat well, to look well, to feel well, but we also have to have a little bit of freedom. Go out on a Friday night, have a girl's day, have a guy's day. Enjoy a sweet treat at night if you need to. Curb those cravings.
Yeah, the Italians aren't overweight, right? I mean, they're having all sorts of deliciousness.
Pasta, wine.
So,
Gelato.
Yeah.
things. But I mean, I think it's interesting also how personalized nutrition has to be. Why I think it's so important for them to consult with someone like you, Chryssie, because everyone at different phases of their lives, for in menopause, like I am, we're going to need a different array of foods than you will, Barry, and you will as a younger woman.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really personalized, and it depends on who you are, what you can handle during your day. A busy mom's maybe going to have time to food prep and measure macros, but most likely not.
Right.
Whereas if you tell me to measure anything, I'm going to rebel. I'm never going to measure.
But we are measuring our protein.
Well, roughly.
Exactly.
And that's how it has to be. Like a palm
An estimation,
size.
yes. You're doing so that's another method.
An estimation.
So I would still categorize that as a weighing and measuring.
Yeah.
It's a measuring approach. It's some way to categorically define how much in some kind of room for error, whatever. It's not to the gram. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But it gives you a sense of about how much. Palm size, plate size.
Yeah.
If you have standardized plate, you could be like this much of your plate.
Yeah.
Or like with the palm, I like the hand thing.
There's the awareness.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's the awareness. Yeah. And yeah, it's an interesting topic. I think it's different for everybody.
But it comes back, core topic that we kind of went down this path a little bit was that for most people, when it comes to achieving their goals, their physical goals of looking a certain way, feeling a certain way, that they're oftentimes looking at how much they weigh and they want to weigh less because if they weigh less, they're going to feel better or they're going to look better or they're going to fit into their pants better or whatever. And partly what we're saying is that's really not the approach you need to be looking at because that's all about cutting, restriction, reduction.
Yeah.
And we're producing fat, skinny people, right? So
Yeah.
we're looking at like you're slim, but you don't have any muscle mass on your body, which leads to a host of health issues, as we've discussed before on podcasts. But as we age, we're losing muscle mass anyways, and without muscle mass, your basal metabolic rate is going to be decreased. So the more muscle you have, the more calories you're going to burn when you're sitting on your fanny, which is a bonus.
Absolutely.
It's one of the reasons why when a person does something maybe like a Weight Watchers or a classic historical calorie restriction diet over time, and they lose weight, they're losing a variety of different things. So yes, they're losing some body fat, but oftentimes it's going to go hand in hand with a loss of muscle mass. And so they come out of that program, maybe they weigh less, but they're weaker. And from a health standpoint, they're really they might actually be in a worse place. And so you run that cycle a few times, then they gain the weight back. So now they oftentimes are gaining just body fat back, not more muscle. And then they're now in a worse spot metabolically because now they have more body fat and less muscle than they started. And you run that cycle 6-8 times and you get to a person who feels like no matter what they do, they can't lose the weight anymore and they feel stuck. And that's where you say, well, the approach that has got you here, we have to do something different than that. And that's, Chryssie, where you say, okay, now we need to start building the muscle and we need to start fueling that properly. And we need to start to create some metabolic activity that is pushing that person's metabolic state to a more energetic, higher place.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of like put a cap on what you just said, time is so precious. And the older we get, the harder it is for us to gain and maintain that muscle. So the more we're in that unhealthy cycle of losing muscle, the harder we're making it on ourselves to gain it later on down the road. So we want to just encourage you to gain that muscle now. Let's gain it. Let's maintain it.
I think this is the whole crux of the diet industry. I think everyone knows this, but it's not promoted this way.
No.
Because otherwise millions of diet companies would go out of business, right? I mean, it's such a lose-lose cycle the way that it's done. And it's so bad for our overall health to crash in muscle and lean muscle mass.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the key to longevity, right? Aging gracefully, aging without pain.
Yeah.
Living a longer life. And yet we just don't, I think very rarely do women think like, I need to eat more to lose weight. Right. And obviously it goes with training. You can't just eat more and lose weight.
Yes.
You got to train.
Yes.
But it's not that easy.
Right.
And you got to eat the right stuff. But
Totally. And this is, I think, even more critical for people to understand as we enter a new era of weight loss that is really driven by medical intervention. So with the new GLP-1 antagonists, and the proliferation of these really incredible medicines for many reasons. I think they can be really positive and beneficial for people, but they can also put you in that exact same place as what we just talked about. So again, make it easy to eat less.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what a GLP-1 is going to do. Is it kind of automates the whole process of calorie restriction. So if you're not combining that with intentionality around the foods that you are eating, protein consumption, and then a very personalized strength training program, man, you can get to a spot like after 6 months or a year on semaglutide or Wegovy or any of these, where again, maybe you've lost 60 or 70 pounds or whatever you wanted to lose, but you've also lost a ton of muscle mass. And what happens if you stop taking the drug and you've made no lifestyle gains?
Oh, yeah.
You're in a terrible spot. This is this heartbreaking stories we hear of a
Yeah.
person who then gains it all back and they feel sick, they're weaker, they're in a worse spot. And then you say it's the drug's fault. I'd say, well, it's not really the drug's fault. The drug is just a mechanism. What you have to do is understand underlying what you need to be working on while you're doing a program, whether that's a macro program or food, whatever. You have to get your food dialed in, even if you're eating less initially. And then you have to figure out a way, to your point, Chryssie, how to increase that intelligently so that you are supporting your body's growth.
100%.
Yeah. It's so sad the other way around. You know, I think if you're approaching, and I'm not against the semaglutides, you know, for someone who really needs to lose weight and they need assistance doing so. But if you're going to a provider who doesn't provide that full support, like this is what you need to eat, this is what you need to train so that you come out of this strong and lean, then I would find another one, you know, another provider to help you and coach you through that, or add a provider in to help and coach you through that.
Yeah.
Even more so, because not all doctors' offices are equipped to add all the components to it, right? But make sure you've got cover.
I have a client right now, actually, who she's lost over 100 pounds. When we first started training, she was in, you know, the high 200s. And before we started training together, she sought out a therapist, like a food therapist, to help her fix her relationship with food. And then after she felt confident with that, she was given those tools. Then she came into the gym and we started training, and then we started working on nutrition. And it was just all three things that have resulted in positive results for her. I truly believe that had she not started with that therapist, we wouldn't have been off to a great start and made as much improvement as we have in such a short amount of time. I think we would have had that yo-yo diet thing going on, and we haven't. We've just been even keeled the entire time.
I love that.
I do too. And so that's where I think, you know, whether that's a therapist who's helping you unlock that, or again, that's in some ways, that's why I like GLP, is because it can impact the brain.
Yeah.
And specifically around the cravings and around food obsession. That's one of the biggest things that type of a treatment methodology can do for a person. But again, if you haven't established new changes in your lifestyle and in your training to shore up and put you in a new place, right, and get to a new space, so that it's like, I used this tool to get to a spot where I think about food differently now. I have a different relationship to it. And it doesn't have to be a medication. It could be like a food therapist. But I do love that you're calling out that mental emotional relationship that does come into play with food. And again, why restrictive diets oftentimes fail too long term is because there's too much restriction. There's too much cutting away and not enough adding in. And that ultimately leaves you in a place where you feel deprived and you're not going to stick with it.
Yeah,
Totally
it's such a
agree.
mental game.
It is. Well, if you've been along this journey with us and you're intrigued, you're interested, you want to hear either more from Dr. Annie about her personal experience, or you just want to get with Chryssie to talk about what a consultation could look like and how that process could look for you in your life, we would love to get you connected. Chryssie is an incredibly gifted coach and trainer and just really looks at things holistically. Again, here at Head to Toe, that's what we're all about. We're all about that holistic whole being treatment, and we see Chryssie as a key piece of that puzzle. So please reach out, recognize there is an incredible path and process for you to be a part of, and we would love to get you guys synced up and chat a little bit more about that.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. And remember, movement is the best medicine.